An investigation is underway tonight at Kern Valley State Prison after an inmate died in an attack yesterday.
One person is dead, 7 hospitalized after what's being called a mass casualty call at the LA County Jail in downtown LA.
For many members of notorious motorcycle clubs, the danger they face on the streets doesn't stop at the prison gates. In fact, the rivalries, betrayals, and violent codes that define their world follow them into incarceration, where the stakes are just as high and the consequences, often deadly. In this video, we'll explore the violent fates of some of the most notorious bikers who met their end behind bars. From brutal murders orchestrated by rival clubs to mysterious deaths that left more questions than answers, these stories highlight the lethal nature of the outlaw biker lifestyle, where even prison walls can't protect against old grudges and deadly vendettas. We'll delve into specific cases that reveal how these bikers continued to live and die by the sword, offering an unflinching look at the grim realities that come with wearing the patch. David Eugene Sequin was a notorious member of the Outlaws motorcycle club, a group known for its violent reputation and criminal activities. Sequin was deeply involved in the club's operations, which included drug trafficking, extortion, and a series of violent crimes. His criminal career took a particularly dark turn in the early 1980s when he embarked on a murderous rampage in Canada. Sequin's actions were not just about asserting dominance over rivals, but also about maintaining his standing within the Outlaws, a club that thrived on fear and brutality. His killing spree left several people dead, including members of rival clubs and those who crossed him. As law enforcement in Canada closed in on him, Sequin fled to the United States in a desperate attempt to evade capture. His escape, however, only postponed the inevitable. In 1985, U.S. law enforcement tracked him down in Steger, Illinois. Rather than surrender, Sequin chose to engage in a final, deadly confrontation. In a dramatic shootout with police, Sequin was killed, bringing an end to his violent spree. The shootout highlighted his unwillingness to face justice and his commitment to the outlaw code, living by the gun and ultimately dying by it. Sequin's death sent shockwaves through the Outlaws motorcycle club and the broader outlaw biker community. Within the club, his death served as a grim reminder of the dangers inherent in their lifestyle, where violence begets more violence, and the law is an ever-present threat. For the broader biker world, Sequin's violent end underscored the harsh realities of life as an outlaw biker. His death became a cautionary tale about the consequences of living outside the law, where the path often leads to a violent and premature end. The legacy of David Eugene Sequin remains as a dark chapter in the history of the Outlaws, a stark example of the lethal consequences that come with a life devoted to crime and violence. William Wild Bill Hulko was a formidable figure in the Canadian biker scene, serving as the president of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club's Kingston chapter in Ontario. Known for his violent nature and ruthless leadership, Hulko was deeply involved in various criminal activities that solidified his power within the club. His operations primarily included drug trafficking, extortion, and violent enforcement of the club's code. Hulko's rise to power was marked by a combination of strategic alliances and the brutal suppression of rivals, both within and outside the club. His reputation for violence and intimidation made him one of the most feared bikers in Ontario, and his leadership helped to expand the Outlaws' influence across the region. In 2002, Hulko was arrested on charges of sexually assaulting a minor, a serious crime that added a new layer of infamy to his already notorious reputation. While awaiting trial at the Quinte Detention Center, Hulko was found dead in his cell. Official reports claimed that Hulko died of natural causes, but the suddenness of his death and the absence of any prior health issues raised suspicions among both his fellow outlaws and law enforcement. Some speculated that Hulko might have been targeted by fellow inmates, or even by individuals within his own club who sought to avoid the fallout from his trial, which threatened to bring unwanted attention to the Outlaws. Hulko's death reverberated through the biker community, particularly among the Outlaws, where his leadership had left a significant impact. Within the club, there was a mix of shock and resignation. Shock at the unexpected nature of his death, and resignation to the fact that such an end was always a possibility in their dangerous world. Law enforcement viewed Hulko's death as a reminder of the volatile environment within biker clubs, where internal conflicts and external pressures often result in sudden and violent outcomes. The mysterious circumstances of Hulko's death reinforce the idea that for outlaw bikers, the dangers they face don't disappear behind bars, they often intensify. His passing added to the lore of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club, serving as yet another example of the perilous lives led by its members, where even prison offers no guarantee of safety. Hulko's legacy, much like his life, remains shrouded in violence and uncertainty, leaving a lasting impression on the biker world. The Gypsy Joker Outlaw Motorcycle Club, GJOMC, was founded in the 1950s in California and quickly gained a reputation for its members' extreme violence and criminal activities. Over the decades, the club expanded its operations across the United States and into several other countries, known for their ruthless enforcement of internal discipline and their fierce rivalries with other motorcycle clubs. The Gypsy Jokers have often been associated with violent crimes, including drug trafficking, extortion, and murder. The club's ethos, like many outlaw motorcycle clubs, is built on a strict code of loyalty and retribution, where betrayal is met with brutal consequences. One of the most notorious incidents in the Gypsy Jokers' history is the kidnapping, torture, and murder of Robert Huggins, a former member of the Portland, Oregon chapter. Huggins had been expelled from the club after being accused of stealing from both the club and Mark Leroy Denklau, the president of the Portland chapter. In the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, such an act is considered one of the gravest betrayals, often punishable by death. In July 2015, under Denklau's orders, Huggins was kidnapped from his residence by several Gypsy Joker members, including Chad Leroy Erickson. Huggins was taken to a remote property in Washington state, where he was subjected to hours of brutal torture. According to trial testimony, Huggins was severely beaten, his skull fractured, and he was slashed multiple times with a knife. The torture ended with Huggins being stabbed and left for dead in a field. His body, discovered the next day, showed signs of extensive blunt force trauma and sharp force injuries, illustrating the extreme violence he endured before succumbing to his injuries. The murder of Robert Huggins led to a lengthy investigation by federal authorities, resulting in the arrests of Denklau, Erickson, and other members of the Gypsy Jokers. During the trial, prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence of the brutality of the crime, including testimony from witnesses and forensic experts. The prosecution painted a clear picture of the premeditated and gruesome nature of Huggins' murder, emphasizing how it was carried out to maintain order and fear within the club. In December 21, both Denklau and Erickson were convicted on multiple charges, including murder in aid of racketeering and kidnapping resulting in death. They were subsequently sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, in delivering the sentence, highlighted the cold-blooded nature of the crime and the complete lack of remorse shown by the defendants. The case of Robert Huggins' murder is a stark reminder of the extreme measures outlaw motorcycle clubs will take to enforce loyalty and discipline. The brutality of the crime shocked both law enforcement and the public, underscoring the lethal consequences of betrayal within these organizations. It also highlighted the persistence of violence that follows members into prison, where the same codes of conduct are often enforced just as ruthlessly. The sentences handed down to Denklau and Erickson serve as a warning to others within the biker world that such acts of violence, while intended to uphold the club's code, can lead to a lifetime behind bars. This case remains a significant example of the deadly culture within outlaw motorcycle clubs and the far-reaching impact of their internal conflicts. Johnny Boy Donnelly was a prominent figure within the Hells Angels London chapter. Known for his fierce loyalty, boasts, and willingness to engage in violent activities, Donnelly quickly rose through the ranks of the club. His reputation for being a tough enforcer made him a key player in the Hells Angels' ongoing battles with rival clubs and in maintaining internal discipline. Donnelly was involved in numerous criminal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, and assaults, all of which cemented his standing within the club as a formidable and feared member. In '91, while serving a prison sentence for his involvement in several violent crimes, Donnelly was murdered under suspicious circumstances. The exact details of his death remain murky, but it is widely believed that his murder was either the result of internal conflicts within the Hells Angels or a targeted attack by a rival club. The prison environment, where tensions between different outlaw motorcycle clubs often run high, provided a dangerous backdrop for Donnelly, whose violent past and high-profile status made him a target. Reports suggest that Donnelly's death was particularly brutal, underscoring the ruthless nature of these conflicts. Whether it was a betrayal from within or an external hit, his murder was a clear demonstration of the ongoing dangers that outlaw bikers face, even when incarcerated. The fact that Donnelly was not safe from violence, even behind bars, highlighted the pervasive and inescapable nature of the rivalries that define the outlaw biker world. Donnelly's murder sent shockwaves through the Hells Angels, particularly within the London chapter. His death served as a stark reminder of the ever-present threat posed by both internal strife and external enemies, even within the supposed security of the prison system. In response, the Hells Angels became even more vigilant about the safety of their members who were incarcerated, increasing their efforts to protect members from similar fates. The impact of Donnelly's death also extended to how the Hells Angels managed loyalty and discipline within the prison system. His murder highlighted the need for tighter control and communication among imprisoned members to prevent further incidents of betrayal or targeted violence. Donnelly's death, while a significant loss to the Hells Angels, also reinforced the brutal reality that the life of an outlaw biker is fraught with danger at every turn, and that the reach of these deadly conflicts extends far beyond the open road and into the confines of prison walls. James "Big Jim" Nolan was a prominent member of the Hells Angels, known for his involvement in the club's most lucrative and dangerous activities. Based primarily in the northeastern United States, Nolan played a significant role in the Hells Angels' drug trafficking operations, which included the distribution of large quantities of methamphetamine and cocaine. His reputation for violence and his willingness to enforce the club's rules with an iron fist made him both respected and feared within the organization. Nolan's criminal activities extended beyond drug trafficking. He was also involved in numerous violent crimes, including assaults and murder, all aimed at maintaining the Hells Angels' dominance over their rivals and ensuring loyalty within the club. In 1999, while serving a sentence for his criminal activities, Nolan was killed in prison. His death was the result of a brutal attack by fellow inmates, which was likely part of a power struggle within the prison. Given his high-ranking status within the Hells Angels, Nolan was a significant target, both for rival club members looking to settle scores and for other inmates seeking to assert their dominance. The exact circumstances of his death remain unclear, but it is widely believed that the attack was premeditated and involved multiple assailants. Nolan's murder in prison underscored the harsh reality that, for outlaw bikers, the threats they face on the outside can be just as deadly, if not more so, on the inside. Nolan's death had far-reaching implications for the Hells Angels and their incarcerated members. It highlighted the constant danger that members face while in prison, where old rivalries and power struggles often erupt into violence. For the Hells Angels, Nolan's murder served as a grim reminder of the vulnerabilities that come with incarceration. The club responded by increasing their efforts to protect their members in prison, reinforcing internal communication and establishing stronger alliances with other groups when necessary. Nolan's death also underscored the ongoing risks associated with the outlaw biker lifestyle, where loyalty to the club can lead to violent confrontations both inside and outside of prison. The incident further illustrated the precarious nature of life within these organizations, where power struggles and vendettas can result in sudden and violent ends. For the Hells Angels, the loss of a member like Nolan was not just a personal blow, but a strategic one, affecting their operations and morale within the prison system and beyond. Mark "Papa" Guardado was a prominent figure within the Hells Angels, serving as the president of the San Francisco chapter. Known for his charismatic leadership and ruthless enforcement of the club's code, Guardado was deeply respected and feared within the biker community. He was instrumental in maintaining the Hells Angels' dominance in the Bay Area, particularly through violent confrontations with rival clubs like the Mongols. Guardado's reputation was built on his ability to lead through both strategic alliances and direct action, often involving violent clashes that reinforced the Hells Angels' position as one of the most formidable outlaw motorcycle clubs in the region. Despite his power and influence, Guardado's life came to a violent end in 2008, not behind bars, but on the streets of San Francisco. On September 2, 2008, Guardado was shot and killed outside a bar in the Mission District, a neighborhood known for its rough edges and club activity. The murder was believed to be the result of an ongoing feud between the Hells Angels and the Mongols, two of the most notorious motorcycle clubs in the United States. The shooter, identified as Christopher Ablett, a member of the Mongols, managed to flee the scene, sparking a nationwide manhunt. Ablett was eventually captured and convicted of Guardado's murder, but the killing highlighted the pervasive and inescapable violence that surrounds members of these outlaw clubs. Guardado's murder was particularly shocking because it occurred so publicly in a densely populated area of San Francisco. The fact that such a high-profile figure could be gunned down in the open underscored the relentless nature of the violence that defines life in the biker world. It also illustrated how the rivalries and vendettas of these clubs don't end at the prison gates. They continue to play out on the streets, often with fatal consequences. The death of Mark Guardado had significant repercussions for the Hells Angels, both locally and nationally. In the immediate aftermath, the club was thrown into a state of mourning, but it quickly turned into a desire for revenge. Guardado's murder led to a series of retaliatory attacks as the Hells Angels sought to avenge their fallen leader. This cycle of violence further escalated tensions between the Hells Angels and the Mongols, leading to more bloodshed and deepening the enmity between the two clubs. Guardado's death also highlighted the precarious nature of leadership within the Hells Angels. His assassination left a power vacuum within the San Francisco chapter, and the club had to quickly regroup to maintain its influence and operations in the region. The incident reinforced the harsh reality that in the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, no one is safe from the reach of their enemies, whether inside prison walls or on the streets. The ongoing cycle of violence following Guardado's death served as a stark reminder of the brutal world these bikers inhabit. A world where loyalty is enforced with blood, and where death is often the ultimate price for power. His murder remains a defining moment in the history of the Hells Angels, symbolizing the constant danger that comes with life at the top of an outlaw motorcycle club. Michael Irish O'Farrell was a well-known member of the Hells Angels Oakland chapter, one of the most notorious and feared outlaw motorcycle clubs in the United States. Born into a life marked by violence and rebellion, O'Farrell was drawn to the Hells Angels at a young age, quickly making a name for himself within the club. Known for his intense loyalty and readiness to engage in violence, he became an integral part of the Hells Angels operations during the 1970s and 1980s. O'Farrell's criminal activities were extensive and included drug trafficking, extortion, and participation in numerous violent confrontations with rival clubs. His involvement in these illicit activities made him a significant figure within the club, respected by his peers and feared by his enemies. O'Farrell's criminal lifestyle eventually caught up with him. In 1989, he was convicted of multiple violent crimes, including his involvement in a brutal club-related murder. His conviction led to a lengthy prison sentence at Folsom State Prison, a facility notorious for its harsh conditions and the presence of numerous rival club members. Life behind bars for O'Farrell was a continuation of the violent world he had known on the outside. The prison environment, rife with club rivalries and power struggles, offered little respite for someone with his background and affiliations. On June 6, 1989, O'Farrell's life came to a violent end when he was brutally attacked by fellow inmates at Folsom State Prison. The attack was premeditated and carried out with the precision of an orchestrated hit, believed to have been ordered by rival club members who saw O'Farrell as a significant threat. He was stabbed multiple times, and despite efforts to save him, he succumbed to his injuries shortly after the attack. The murder of O'Farrell highlighted the ever-present danger faced by members of outlaw motorcycle clubs, even when they are incarcerated. For high-profile members like O'Farrell, the prison walls offered no protection from the deadly rivalries that define their lives. The murder of Michael O'Farrell had a profound impact on the Hells Angels, particularly within the Oakland chapter. His death was a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by the club's members, even in prison. It also underscored the relentless nature of the conflicts between rival biker clubs, where scores were often settled with violence, regardless of the setting. Michael O'Farrell's life and death serve as a powerful example of the perils associated with the outlaw biker lifestyle. His violent end in prison illustrates how the code of retribution and loyalty that governs these clubs can lead to deadly consequences, even in what should be the most secure environments. For the Hells Angels and other similar organizations, O'Farrell's murder remains a reminder of the constant threats that loom over their members, both inside and outside prison, where the battle for dominance and survival never truly ends. The lives of notorious bikers like Michael Irish O'Farrell and others we've discussed highlight the brutal reality of the outlaw motorcycle world, where violence can strike even behind prison walls. These stories remind us of the relentless danger these individuals face.
Who are the most notorious current-day Hells Angels behind bars and beyond redemption? For what offenses did they receive a life sentence? Learn about the lives of these men and the destruction they caused as we delve into the underbelly of biker gangs. Is it realistic to believe that they can't be saved? Once a renowned player within the club's inner circles, Rusty Coons found himself entangled in a web of illegal operations that finally led to his demise. These activities ultimately led to his fall from grace. Coons' reputation, which used to be one that commanded respect, was tarnished when he became involved in the seedy underbelly of the town by engaging in activities such as drug trafficking and possessing guns. In spite of his initial charisma and power, he eventually found himself in legal jeopardy due to the sneaky activities he was engaged in. In sharp contrast to the power he formerly wielded, Coons is currently serving multiple sentences for various offenses. His jail sentence serves as a lesson to be learned, a glaring reminder of the repercussions that come with a life spent involved in illicit businesses. As more time passes, the reputation of Coons shifts from that of a formidable person to that of a warning symbol, a testament to the dangers of going beyond the bounds of the law. Former club insider Rusty Coons fell victim to his own web of illegal activity and fell from grace. Coons' once respected image has been tarnished by his involvement in illegal activities like drug trafficking and gun ownership. His sneaky actions eventually landed him in legal trouble, despite his initial charisma and clout. Coons' current situation, where he is serving numerous terms, is in stark contrast to the power he formerly had. His incarceration is a sobering example of the repercussions that come with engaging in illicit activity. With the passage of time, Coons' legacy changes from that of a fearsome character to that of a warning symbol, a demonstration of the dangers of acting outside of the law. Once a hero of the medical world, Dr. James Kaufman became embroiled in a scandal that rocked the country. He broke his oath by working with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club on a dangerous drug operation. The inexplicable death of his wife was the final horrific chapter in his terrible fall from grace. The resulting request uncovered a stunning snare of double dealing, with Kaufman's contribution in the medication exchange and his better half's unfavorable passing at its middle. He was found blameworthy based on overpowering proof and given a lifelong incarceration in jail, successfully finishing his once splendid vocation and breaking the existences of endless individuals. The terrible ruin of Dr. James Kaufman is a sobering update that even the most regarded and effective individuals are not insusceptible to the force of malevolence. Raymond Ray Folks, a flamboyant former leader, became embroiled in a network of illegal operations. His notoriety in the criminal underground as a major player in the drug trade inspired both terror and respect. In 2017, however, he was hit with a wave of legal consequences that brought his empire tumbling down. Folks was on trial for a drug distribution conspiracy amid a deluge of evidence and witness testimony. The overwhelming body of evidence led to his conviction despite his best efforts to elude justice. The finality of his fall was reflected in the courtroom's solemn gavel, which signaled the end of a period marked by criminal exploits. The story of Raymond Ray Folks should serve as a warning to those who would seek to gain or maintain power dishonestly. Christy Julian was married to a high-ranking member of the Hells Angels motorcycle gang, and she became embroiled in a web of drug trafficking and criminal activity. Christy's participation with the renowned motorcycle gang began innocently enough after she married into the group, but it quickly took a dark turn when she became involved in the heroin trade. When she was indicted on drug trafficking charges, her position as an unseen player abruptly ended. Christy's account, however, took a surprising turn. She risked a long prison term by blowing the whistle on the club's illegal activities. Her evidence revealed the complex web of the Hells Angels and highlighted their involvement in a wide range of criminal activities. Christy's bold action resulted in her own redemption and inflicted a major blow to the criminal organization she had been a member of. Her deeds shed light on a previously unseen facet of the Hells Angels and had far-reaching consequences in the underworld. A prominent and powerful man in the criminal underworld, Chocolate George Waggers, became embroiled in a web of evil that included drug trafficking, tampering, and a frightening plan to murder. His illicit activities ceased in 2010, when the law eventually apprehended him, and his conviction sent shockwaves across the underworld. As a major figure in the illegal drug trade, Waggers had the authority and influence to control and corrupt without fear of repercussions. His nefarious plans went far beyond drug trafficking, and the fact that he tampered with evidence and helped arrange a murder shows just how little value he placed on human life. The subsequent judicial actions demonstrated the commitment of law enforcement to bringing down the criminal hierarchy. In the end, Waggers' conviction was a sobering reminder that not even the most crafty and callous of criminals can escape the clutches of the law. Sonny Barger was a well-known character who helped establish a notorious motorcycle gang, but he became mired in a web of lawsuits and accusations that tarnished his reputation. Involvement in drug conspiracy trials and related court fights was a low point in a life full of ups and downs. In 2005, the gavel of justice slammed down hard when he was given a 10-year prison sentence for his defiant ways in the past. Once associated with freedom and the open road, Barger's complicated persona is now more commonly associated with the drama and complexity of the legal system. His life is a cautionary tale about the junction of celebrity, infamy, and the repercussions of poor choices. Smilin' Rick, who was previously unknown, became a pivotal element in a multi-state drug trafficking operation. He secretly operated an organization that distributed illegal drugs, spinning a web of secrecy that ensnared many people. Authorities diligently followed up on leads and pieced together the complex web of his enterprise. After a long investigation, law enforcement finally succeeded in 2001 when they captured Smilin' Rick. The judge agreed with the prosecution's assessment of guilt and imposed a severe punishment, sending him to prison for a very long time. There was a palpable sense of joy and relief in the courtroom as justice was done for the victims' communities. Smilin's downfall. The shockwaves Rick caused in the criminal underground were a clear reminder that anyone may be caught and punished. His legacy would be tied inextricably to the seedy side of human nature and the dogged persistence of those who defend the rule of law. Criminal kingpin Ray Johnny Angel Bonds was caught up in a web of drug trafficking and violent crimes that sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. In 2010, he was finally caught by law enforcement authorities, putting an end to his reign of terror and his illegal activities. Bonds was finally convicted of his crimes in 2011 after a lengthy court struggle, giving his victims some measure of closure. The relentless efforts of law enforcement finally paid off with his conviction. Considering the severity of his crimes, the court imposed a lengthy prison sentence, thereby ending his reign of terror. The case of Ray Johnny Angel Bonds serves as a sobering reminder of how hard law enforcement works to keep communities safe from violent offenders. The conversation sheds light on the criminal operations of Hell's Angels members, going into the finer points of their illegal endeavors and the tangled web of their relationships with police authorities. As more data opens up, obviously the people included have taken part in a wide assortment of criminal operations, from drug dealing and arms sneaking to blackmail and tax evasion. The debate sheds light on the bold strategies used by the Hell's Angels and the dogged efforts made by authorities to limit their impact, both of which are significant difficulties for law enforcement. The cat and mouse game played out between the infamous motorcycle club and those sworn to defend the law is easier to grasp after a thorough examination of the available data. The cases under review are a sobering reminder of how hard people work to make society more accountable. They demonstrate the constabulary's unyielding dedication to bringing individuals involved in organized crime to justice. A high-stakes fight between the forces of law and the shadowy realms of criminal enterprises is shown in the multi-layered tales. These incidents shed light on the complexities of the struggle in which diligent investigators must follow tangled webs of lies and cover-ups. Every one of these cases exemplifies the unwavering commitment to bringing those responsible for criminal networks to justice. The ongoing court procedures demonstrate the steadfast determination of law enforcement in its quest to defend the principles of justice and protect the public from the grip of organized crime. Thanks for watching. For more, kindly subscribe to our channel.